On this Tuesday night, the future of the Winnipeg Jets in jeopardy.
We don't want to lose him again because we'll never get him back.
What's gone wrong? And why is the NHL commissioner coming to town? Opting out of national Pharmacare, why 2 provinces are saying no thanks, and the concerns of some patients. Is President Biden overplaying optimism about a ceasefire in Gaza?
We don't want to go back to war.
As more people in Gaza die. And starved for snow.
It's been a really, really challenging season.
How the mild winter is creating misery for the tourism industry and for farmers.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. It can be unnerving when the head of the NHL shows up in town, but in Winnipeg tonight, Gary Bettman was a cheerleader for the Winnipeg Jets. The team's owner has been candid about the struggle to get fans out to games, and the NHL commissioner took to center ice tonight. His message to fans: Winnipeg is a strong market. Get over your anxiety and come to games. Eric Sorensen looks at what's gone wrong in Winnipeg and whether Gary Bettman can help fix it.
It's ironic. The Winnipeg Jets are having one of their best seasons on the ice, but off the ice, the team struggles to fill all the seats with paying customers. It's prompted NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman to meet with the team's management and address fans tonight. But his message is to tamp down concern.
I don't view this as a crisis, but I do believe, as with any team in any market, there needs to be collaboration.
It's the talk of the town.
I think it is really concerning for the team and the future.
And the talk on Talk Radio.
This is the story that just doesn't go away.
The story: can this modest-sized Prairie City support a major league sports team?
A lot of us are having those conversations about re-upping our season tickets, but right now it's about getting corporate Winnipeg on board.
Winnipeg is the smallest market in the NHL, and there isn't a large surrounding population to help out. And even with the smallest permanent arena in the league, capacity just over 15,000, the Jets are not selling out, averaging only 13,000 fans. And the purchase of season tickets has fallen from 13,000 to under 9,500 in the last 3 years, a decline of 27%.
Winnipeg's smaller business community accounts for only a fraction of the corporate season tickets that other NHL cities can count on.
Compared to other jurisdictions, 15% of corporate tickets here in the city, 45% in the next smallest market.
Pro hockey has been a roller coaster ride for Winnipeg. From its heyday winning the last WHA championship and its early years in the NHL, to the team being sold and leaving the city behind in 1996. And then the comeback in 2011.
I am excited beyond words to announce our purchase of the Atlanta Thrashers.
Fans, thrilled to get a second chance, filled the arena. But even then, the NHL commissioner had a reality check for the city.
To be candid, this isn't going to work very well unless this building is sold out every night.
13 years later, with ever-increasing ticket prices and player salaries, the challenge is to build enough support that the Jets' second chance is not their last chance in Winnipeg.
We're not operating under the sword of Damocles or on a razor's edge. This is part of the evolution of what franchises sometimes go through.
Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
The promise of a national Pharmacare program intended to give all Canadians better and cheaper access to medicine is beginning to crumble before it's even been implemented. The Alberta government now says it's not interested in the federal plan. Neither is Quebec. The federal government is expected to table the first piece of Pharmacare legislation this week, which would cover the costs of diabetes medicine and birth control. David Akin explains why 2 provinces are saying no thanks.
Well, Donna, for Quebec, this is standard operating procedure. It has been opting out of federal government programs for decades. But when it does, Quebec generally receives compensation from Ottawa to set up its own provincial program that will match the one that Ottawa was offering. But with the National Pharmacare program, another province, Alberta, is ready to follow Quebec's lead.
We want to avoid the bureaucracy. I don't think the federal government understands that provinces do have processes in place. They have suppliers. They have an administrative network already set up.
And while Quebec has not signaled what it will do with the extra Pharmacare cash, Alberta is ready to use it to enhance existing provincial coverage for diabetes and birth control drugs.
We would be absolutely willing to enhance those programs All we need is the federal government to provide those dollars to us, and we will make sure that we enhance the programs.
Diabetes patients in Alberta see the decision taken by Premier Danielle Smith's government in a political light.
She just wants to own the libs. That's really all I think it is, honestly.
But Sean Hanley thinks the federal plan could save him hundreds of dollars a year.
I think it would save a lot of people a lot of money. I don't see her problem with it.
If you're paying daily for a life-saving medication, you're going to factor that into your decision on where to live.
Kristen Stringer has 2 kids with type 1 diabetes, and she worries that once they leave the home, they may have to leave the province.
Both my children have expressed a desire to potentially look outside of Alberta, knowing that they may not be able to receive coverage as adults.
As for the federal health minister, he says everyone is getting ahead of themselves.
The first thing I would say is everybody just needs to take a pause. For provinces to say whether or not they're going to participate in something or not when they don't even know what it is a little premature.
And Ottawa says the legislation, which will contain answers about timelines and coverage levels, compensation for provinces opting out, that could be tabled as early as Thursday. Donna.
Okay, David in Ottawa, thank you. A little later in the newscast, Abigail Bettman has the story of one Ontario town at risk of losing a medical clinic, leaving thousands of patients there without primary care. A forensic pathologist has told a coroner's inquest in Saskatchewan that Miles Sanderson died of an acute cocaine overdose. Sanderson killed 11 people and injured 17 others on a rampage in the James Smith Cree Nation and the village of Weldon. The 32-year-old led police on a 3-day manhunt in September of 2022. He went into medical distress shortly after his arrest by RCMP and later died in hospital. Police dashcam footage played today showed how Sanderson was taken into custody after a high-speed chase. At the time, he asked officers how many people he'd killed. The week-long inquest is meant to establish the circumstances around Sanderson's death. BC's Premier David Eby delivered a formal apology today on behalf of the province to members of the Doukhobor community. They're an exiled Russian Christian group that had dozens of their children taken from their families more than 70 years ago.
While we cannot undo the harms of the past, we can recognize and hold up survivors while we continue our work together to ensure that such a violation of human rights, of human dignity, of families, never happens again.
A small group within the Doukhobor community was once known for naked protests and periodically burning down their own homes as a rejection of materialism. In the 1950s, hundreds of Doukhobor children were forcibly taken from their parents and sent to camps where many reported physical and psychological abuse. In addition to today's apology, the government announced a $10 million compensation package aimed at reconciliation. The American president's comments that a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas could be in place by next Monday appears to be overly optimistic. Both Hamas and Israel are downplaying the idea, and people trapped by Israel's siege on Gaza continue to die. Gaza's health ministry, backed by Hamas, now says more than 29,700 people have been killed in nearly 5 months. Most are women and children. The 1.5 million people displaced from their homes struggle to find food and medicine. Doctors Without Borders said today Israel has tightened its blockade of Gaza, its director general blasting what she calls Israel's blatant and total disregard for the protection of Gaza's medical facilities and humanitarian workers. Jackson Proskow on the growing crisis and the state of peace talks.
These desperate cries cannot be heard by the Jordanian crews flying high above Gaza. Each airdrop triggers a frantic rush along the beach as Palestinians rush into the ocean to gather anything that's salvageable. The UN warns the flow of aid by land has slowed to a trickle and says its own convoys and those of other agencies are being blocked by Israel.
Aid convoys have come under fire and are systematically denied access to people in need. Humanitarian workers have been harassed, intimidated or detained by Israeli forces.
Gazans can only hope for something to end the fighting. We hope it will be a permanent ceasefire. We don't want to go back to war, she says. Israel has proposed a 6-week pause in hostilities during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan in exchange for the release of hostages. There are few signs of the breakthrough needed to get there.
We have seen a positive trajectory by the sheer fact that the meetings are taking place, but we have yet to reach a final agreement.
Hamas has long insisted that any hostage deal must lead to a permanent ceasefire. Israel refuses to compromise on its goal of toppling the militant group. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu insisted there's enough American support to continue the Israeli military campaign for another year, until complete victory. U.S. President Joe Biden suggests otherwise.
They're going to lose support from around the world, and that is not in Israel's interest.
Meanwhile, millions of displaced Gazans are on borrowed time, with the UN warning 1/4 of the population is on the brink of famine. Jackson Proskow, Global News, Washington.
The lack of a ceasefire in Gaza could have a direct impact on President Biden's political future. In Michigan, the state with the largest Arab American population, the message to Biden is no ceasefire, no vote.
It's very well known that we support a ceasefire and we'd like our president to listen.
Democrats angry with Biden's support for Israel are urging voters in today's primary to mark their ballots uncommitted. Biden is largely unopposed in Michigan, so he will win, but it's a swing state, and how many withhold their vote for Biden today could signal what's to come in November's presidential election. Donald Trump is expected to easily win Michigan's Republican primary today, although former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley remains in the race. There's no business like snow business. Coming up, how ski hills and farmers are struggling this winter. People in London, Ontario woke up to a hailstorm and thunder this morning, and temperatures that peaked at 13 degrees Celsius. Unseasonably warm weather has persisted across eastern Canada for most of the winter. That is about to end. A blast of cold is forecast for southern Ontario Wednesday into Thursday, and then by the weekend, temperatures are expected to spike up again. On the prairies, warmer winter weather has farmers worried about drought this spring. And as Neetu Garcha reports, a lack of snow in BC has pretty much washed out ski season.
Some might welcome milder weather, but for many Canadian ski resorts, this winter's warmth has been wreaking havoc, leaving businesses and events in a pinch.
It's been a really, really challenging season. When we have a kind of very, very slow season like we're experiencing this year, it's really, really hard for our employees because we just can't give them the hours. So it's really sad for them.
Sparse snow has left some mountains closed. Others got creative, using cannons to pump out artificial snow.
I mean, we've had great years, we've had bad years, but this has been an exceptionally poor one.
You know, it's not good, but you take what you can get, right?
These resorts rely on winter tourism, and the lack of snow is taking a toll on their bottom line.
This has bred a culture within the ski area operators of really planning for the worst, hoping for the best, but operators with their business continue to invest in weatherproofing their experience and their facilities.
But it's not just tourism taking a hit. The agricultural sector is feeling the effects of the warm weather. Shortages of feed and water are forcing some farmers to make tough decisions on crops and livestock.
They're likely going to have to switch varieties and look at other crops to grow in some areas, or just not plant the crops that they would normally plant.
This agroclimate specialist says in Alberta, a large number of reservoirs are low on water, part of a long drought cycle not seen in decades.
What we're seeing right now is some of the impacts are becoming very extreme.
Meanwhile, in Quesnel, BC, the absence of snow pushed BC Winter Games organizers to cancel several events and relocate others.
Environment Canada has issued a snowfall warning for parts of BC, including the lower mainland region. But even with a glimpse of winter weather coming, it's not likely to make any meaningful difference for ski resorts struggling with unusually low snow levels. Donna?
Neetu in North Vancouver, BC, thanks. Dry, windy, and unseasonably warm conditions are fueling wildfires across northern Texas. The blaze of most concern is the Smokehouse Creek fire. It's burned more than 200,000 acres since it took off on Monday afternoon. Several communities have already been evacuated. Dozens more are on alert. Doctor shortage ahead. A look at how the healthcare crisis is playing out in one Ontario town. The cost of getting a degree in medicine can be astronomical, especially in the U.S. But at one university in New York City, that's no longer a problem.
Starting in August this year,
the Albert Einstein College of Medicine will be tuition-free.
Well, there were cheers and tears from students as Ruth Gottesman announced she is donating $1 billion to the Albert Einstein Medical School in the Bronx, New York's poorest borough. Tuition will be free from now on. The head of the school calls it transformational and says it will attract students who are committed to medicine, not just those who can afford it. Gottesman, who is 93, is a former professor at the school and the widow of a wealthy Wall Street financier. Well, millions of Canadians don't have a family doctor, and how that plays out differs if you live in big cities or small towns. No matter where it happens, though, the consequences are the same. An aging population losing family doctors and life-saving care. Abigail Bettman tells us what's at stake in Perth, Ontario, where a family clinic is on the verge of closing.
John Waugh feels fortunate to have a family doctor.
To lose that kind of opportunity to get an appointment within 24 hours with your doctor is something that the town can't afford.
But the Tay River Health Centre says the allocation of new provincial funding means the clinic he uses may be forced to close.
We had put forth a proposal for $2.9 million to cover 8,500 patients that did not have already a primary care provider.
The plan was for an expanded health team in Perth and one other even smaller community to cover everything from mental and women's health, geriatric and dementia services, and after-hours care.
How did everything go?
This month, Dr. Taylor Ferrier learned their application was rejected.
Our team was met with grief, shock, and quite a bit of confusion.
Making the situation worse, other clinics in Perth received $3.1 million. Ferrier says this split in a small town will have devastating consequences.
To have half of our patient population go without those extra supports that we all desperately need right now is a major blow. This will make it very hard for us to continue to attract new healthcare professionals here. And ultimately, their pool of applicants for their healthcare facility will ultimately need to draw from ours.
When Global News asked about the situation here in Perth and why Tay River's application was rejected, we couldn't get a clear answer. The health minister's office said it received an overwhelming number of applications, which they reviewed extensively.
Not good for the town.
Perth's mayor has been advocating with the province to make things equitable for a community that has seen a number of retiring doctors and a population set to grow.
What disturbs me is it's going to be a whole tsunami of residents my age and older, and I don't see anywhere where there's a plan.
If nothing changes, Dr. Ferrier predicts his clinic will be forced to close in 2 to 3 years, leaving 10,000 patients without a doctor, plus thousands more who could have been helped. Abigail Bettman, Global News, Perth, Ontario.
The trauma of war next, how children in Bucha, Ukraine, are healing. What unfolded in the city of Bucha, Ukraine, was beyond brutal. Days after Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022, Russian troops took over the city about 30 kilometers outside Kyiv. After it was liberated, humanitarian agencies found evidence of war crimes. Civilians bound, shot, killed at close range. Our Crystal Gamansing recently returned to Bucha. She found lots of work has been done to repair the buildings, but that's the easy part. Helping those who lived through it, especially the children, is a much longer, more delicate process.
Learning what's behind smiles, frowns, and other emotional expressions might seem simple to an outsider. In Bucha, it's complicated. The city was occupied in the early days of Russia's full-scale invasion. What unfolded here was ghastly. The grounds of St. Andrew's and All Saints Church became a burial site. After the city was liberated, the extent of the horrors came into focus. International pathologists were needed to help conduct postmortems and document findings. First, take a deep breath, then a short breath, and then again a deep breath. Kids at this community center learn relaxation techniques. They do art and they talk. Psychologist Victoria Nichaparenko says the children she sees are improving. Children are completely different. For example, Zoya, their house was completely burnt down here in Bucha. They were left with absolutely nothing. Zoya is a bit shy, but flashes a few little smiles and speaks some English. Twins Rustic and Caustic are bundles of energy. They have an aunt living in Canada and hope she sees them on TV, but they don't know which city she lives in. You don't know. Okay. That was a big sigh and a "я не знаю." Okay. Bucha today doesn't look anything like it did 2 years ago. The twisted, melted metal has been cleared away. An apartment block fired on by tanks has been rebuilt. But the emotional remodeling for the people here is a much bigger project. They are still there, the feelings. I have a suitcase and it is still standing. This is an emergency bag. We are encouraged to talk to the children about their experiences in this war, but gently. I start by asking who has a soldier in the family. My godfather is in the war, and I really miss him. What do you think about the war? How do you feel? War and war. It has been going on for a long time, and I am used to it. I feel kindness, heart, and confidence. I don't feel anything. The war, people are dying there, and I'm very sad. I would like all military personnel to return to their home and Ukraine to win. A wish from a child in a city colored by its wartime experiences. Crystal Gamansing, Global News, Bucha, Ukraine.
That's Global National for this Tuesday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is Cox Bay Beach in Tofino, BC. We'd love to see your Canada. Please email it to viewers@globalnational.com. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.